Hi y'all, my name is Mr. Chao, and welcome to Chao Time. I'm really excited about this week's video. It's a review on this watch right here, the Seamaster Diver 300 in black ceramic. The watch is no longer called the Seamaster Professional, but I'm going to continue calling it that because it says it right on the dial. The watch is a loaner from Daming Watches in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. So a big shout out to them for making this video possible. If you'd like to check them out, their contact information is in the description below. The way I review watches is by scoring them against a very meticulously planned rubric that I created. I then take that score and apply a value multiplier. If you're interested in how the process works, there is a video in the top right hand corner that you can go check out. The rubric is also available in the description. After scoring the watch, I then give a completely subjective opinion based on my emotions and feelings and thoughts, my experience, because at the end of the day, that is how I make my watch buying decisions. So let's get to it. Before we begin scoring the watch against the rubric, first we need to understand what the purpose of the watch is. Why does it exist, and what design influences it? Well, the watch is a luxury dive watch, as the name implies. This will help me frame the review and give the review context. We'll start with the function, feel, and visual appeal of the case and bracelet. The case is simply amazing. Let's start with the dimensions for those who aren't aware. The case is 43.5 millimeters wide, 13.7 millimeters tall, and 50 millimeters lug to lug. Now, for me, that would usually be on the big side, and it is big, especially as it sits tall on this Omega NATO. But the case is made of black ceramic, and in combination with the NATO, feels incredibly light. The ceramic portions of the case have either a mirror polish or straight brush. They are beautifully executed and give the case enough variety to keep things interesting. It has the classic Omega twisted lug aesthetic, which is both original and cohesive with the lines and curves of this case. Because the case is made of ceramic, it is incredibly scratch resistant, but also more prone to being shattered than a steel case. The Omega logo is embossed on the crown. Sitting on top is a double AR coated, double domed sapphire crystal that flows effortlessly into the bezel. Speaking of which, this bezel is one of the most satisfying and solid I have ever felt. I don't like to make comparisons in the reviews, so suffice it to say, this one is exceptional. The ceramic bezel is glossy, with 10-minute intervals written in numerals, 5-minute batons, and 1-minute markers engraved. It's filled with a white enamel and has tiny bubbles in it under extreme magnification. The lume pip at 12 o'clock sticks out, but the lume itself seems recessed. The scalped edges make the bezel ever so slightly harder to turn than if it were textured, but it is surprisingly easy to get purchased. Actually, it seems to require slightly less grip pressure than some coined edge bezels I've encountered, but this is not something I've measured. On the opposite side of the case is an exhibition caseback, which is also well finished, but has some oddly sharp edges. The NATO strap feels nice and soft. The colors match the watch well, and the metal hardware is finished well too, with Omega engraved into this piece, and the Omega logo embossed into this one. When wearing the watch on this NATO, the caseback and lugs sit pretty far away from your wrist. Some of these surfaces are a little sharp, as I mentioned before, and also the end of the lugs are as well. And this could be uncomfortable to those with sensitive skin, but I never found this to be an issue, since the only skin contact was with the double pass-through NATO. There is also a rubber option, but no bracelet option. The final aspect of the user interface is the crown, which protrudes out of the case and crown guard, and has deep ridges, allowing ease of use and operation, even with wet hands or wearing gloves. The same can be said for the helium escape valve, but to be honest, I didn't unscrew that, and I'm sure that most owners won't be fiddling with that crown much. The watch has only been out since 2019, but there don't seem to be any prevalent quality control issues. 10 out of 10 for form, 9 out of 10 for function. Moving on to the dial. Wow. I mean, look at that dial. The dial itself has a fabric or crosshatch brush finish when observed through a loop. The wave pattern on the dial is actually embossed on the 43.5mm version of the Diver 300 instead of the engraved on the smaller 42mm version. The amount of embossing is not significant, but it does stand out in the right light, especially because it's glossy on an otherwise matte dial. The indices, however, are incredibly tall and bold. They have a fine vertical brushing with a dome of lume that glows a cool blue well into the night. They really pop off the dial and give the dial depth and legibility beyond reproach. The indices, along with the hands, are titanium, continuing the theme of corrosion resistance. The lume on the hands is green, adding a bit of flavor when looking at the watch in movie theaters or dark rooms. The hands are also straight brushed, with the minute hand brushed in 2 different directions. Looking at this watch through a loop is a real treat. The Omega logo, text, and minute track are printed flawlessly. The overall design of the dial is certainly Omega's own, an evolution of the wave dial brought into prominence in the late 90s and the ceramic dial of the 2000s. It's uncluttered, and the contrast between functional aspects is extremely high. And a first on Chao Time, a 10 out of 10 for both function and form of the dial. Let's move on to the movement. The movement behind the exhibition caseback is the Metas certified caliber 8806. It's an in-house caliber that beats at 25,200 beats per hour. It's a time-only movement, which hurts the functionality score, but is built with a titanium balance wheel and silicone hairspring to improve magnetic resistance. I appreciate this added functionality, as there are so many magnets in our lives now. It also has a free-sprung balance with silicone balance spring for added shock resistance. Looking through the caseback, you can see that most visible surfaces are finished in Geneva waves. It has the trademark coaxial escapement, which reduces friction, which with the lower beat rate should lead to longer service intervals and a longer overall life expectancy. The power reserve is a very healthy 55 hours, and should be accurate to plus 5 seconds a day. All in all, the only criteria that hurt this movement is the slower beats per hour, making the second hand stutter that little bit, and its lack of complications. Otherwise, it's a strong showing for Omega. 6.5 out of 10 for form, 7.5 out of 10 for function. So far, that's a 53 out of 60. The lone subjective category, heritage and prestige, is fairly simple to judge. Omega has been in the watch game since 1848, and the Seamaster line has been in existence since 1948 in some form or fashion. The brand has a strong following in the watch community, and one of a few brands that has a presence in the general public. The appearances in various movies and other pop culture media certainly help the brand visibility as well. It has been said in the last decade that Omega is diluting its brand with the sheer variety of references and special editions, and I must agree. There are currently 4 lines of Seamasters, and dozens of variations in each line. The Diver 300 alone has 3 case sizes and 53 watches in the current catalog, although I believe some have stopped production and are simply being sold through. There seem to be special editions or limited runs every single year. It is the second most common luxury watch I see, as far as anecdotal evidence goes. 8 out of 10 for heritage and prestige, giving the watch a total score of 61 out of 70. The watch was released in 2019 and is currently in production. It retails for around $8,100 USD, but can be picked up on the gray market for closer to $6,000 to $6,500. On the secondhand market, I have seen it as low as $4,500, but also up to $5,500. In any case, I think it's fair to say that this watch will run you over $5,000. which is the ceiling for the value multiplier decreasing. That means the value multiplier will be 1 for this watch. And the value score is identical to the total score, 61 out of 70. So, that brings me to my personal opinion on this piece. And I've got to say, I really like it. Which surprised me, but it shouldn't have. It brings to light a issue that I have had since my watch collecting journey began. And that's that I look at internet pictures and specs too closely. I thought that the 43.5mm case was going to be too large. I thought that I liked the flat ceramic dial of the previous Seamaster Professional more. I thought I needed a date complication. But I was wrong. Now, after handling it and wearing it, I can't stop thinking about this watch. I'm seriously thinking about buying it. The black ceramic with titanium hardware is equal parts beautiful and functional. The 8806 movement is also beautiful and functional. And that dial. My goodness, it has so much depth and character. Also, it wears so much smaller than the numbers would suggest. Probably due to the weight, more than any other design decision. But the black case also helps keep it visually small. I think the other thing that makes this watch so desirable is the technology crammed into every crevice. The movement is state of the art, the case materials are unique and semi-exotic, and it's crazy comfortable. I haven't lusted after a watch like this, I think, since the Rolex Explorer 2 Polar in 40mm. Let's see how long the feeling lasts and how high up it will go on my watch shopping list. So, do you agree with the scoring? Is there anything about the rubric that you would like to see changed? Is there any content that you'd like to see me make, or a review that you would like to see? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Hope you enjoyed. Bye y'all.